Imagine a train carriage so heavily fortified it was dubbed the Iron Vault, carrying a treasure so immense it could fund a war for a year. Now imagine that vault arriving at its destination, its seals unbroken, its locks untouched, and its contents gone. Not a penny, not an ounce. $30 million in pure California gold vanished into thin air. This is not a tale of a masked bandit holding up a stagecoach, nor a simple bank robbery. This is the story of the ghost gold of the American Civil War, a staggering shipment that disappeared without a trace in the heart of the Union. A puzzle that baffled Pinkertons, incensed Abraham Lincoln, and seeded a legend of betrayal and buried fortune that persists in the Pennsylvania wilderness to this day. The year was 1863. The Civil War was tearing the young United States in two. Vicksburg had fallen. Gettysburg was a bloody recent memory. And the Union's financial engine was running on fumes, sustained only by the promise of victory and, critically, by the gold flowing in from the Pacific. The gold fields of California were the Union's financial bloodline, a constant, vital transfusion of bullion needed to pay troops, purchase European arms, and stabilize a jittery treasury. The shipment, known only by its manifest designation, Operation Hercules, was the largest transfer of gold from the San Francisco Mint since the war began. It consisted of nearly 8 tons of California gold, $30 million worth of ingots and newly minted eagles, all destined for the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia. The architects of security. The task of overseeing this transfer fell to the United States Express Company, a private firm that handled high-value assets for the government. Their chief of security for the eastern leg of the journey was Captain Elias Vance, a man whose reputation had been forged in the crucible of frontier defense and railroad logistics. Vance was a veteran of the Mexican-American War and possessed a meticulous, almost paranoid eye for detail. For Operation Hercules, Vance had commissioned a specialized rail car, the Penitentiary Car. It was an unadvertised marvel, a reinforced steel shell built atop a standard freight chassis, with a single vault chamber lined with inch-thick hardened iron plating. The 2 doors were secured by custom-built Chubb locks, requiring separate, unique keys held by 2 different officials, Vance himself and a representative from the Treasury Department. That representative was Mr. Silas Thorne, a Treasury inspector. Thorne was the opposite pole from Vance, a bookish, quiet man with a background in accounting and a nervous disposition that bordered on constant anxiety. He viewed his responsibility, the holding of the second key, with the terror of a man holding a ticking bomb. The route of riches. The gold traveled first by steamer from San Francisco to Panama, crossed the isthmus, and then sailed up the Atlantic coast to New York. This sea leg was successful, a testament to naval escort and Vance's planning. The land journey, the most vulnerable leg, began in Jersey City, New Jersey on the night of November 4th, 1863. The plan was simple and direct. Jersey City, New Jersey to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania via the Central Railroad of New Jersey. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to Lock Haven, Pennsylvania via the Northern Central Railway. Lock Haven, Pennsylvania to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania via a final, highly guarded transfer with a scheduled stop in the remote lumber district of Dents Run, Pennsylvania for an unlisted logistical check of the railway's coal and water reserves. This isolated spot was chosen for its minimal civilian traffic and ease of military lockdown. The penitentiary car was coupled immediately behind the locomotive and tender, the safest place from a rear attack, and was guarded by Captain Vance, Mr. Thorne, and a squad of 12 heavily armed Union Army sharpshooters. The train left Jersey City under a blanket of fog and secrecy. The only sound was the rhythmic chuffing of the engine and the relentless clack of the wheels on the rails, carrying the most valuable single payload in American history toward the financial heart of the Union. The missing hours. The initial leg to Harrisburg was flawless. The train arrived on schedule, and the penitentiary car was inspected. Vance and Thorne, in a ritual that would become their liturgy of security, checked the vault doors, confirming the seals were intact, the locks secure, and the lock mechanisms unmarred. The trouble began after the train left Lock Haven, chugging deep into the Allegheny Mountains. At 2 a.m. on November 6th, the train stopped at the unscheduled remote clearing near Dents Run. The Union detachment disembarked, establishing a tight perimeter. Vance supervised the quick replenishment of the locomotive's tender. The entire stop was planned for no more than 30 minutes. It was during this interval that the first anomaly was noted, not by the guards, but by the engineer, a railman named Jedediah Cobb. Cobb reported a slight but indisputable vibration in the penitentiary car when the train was stationary. It wasn't the natural settling of the carriages. It was a rhythmic, almost mechanical hum that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the vault car. When he mentioned it to Captain Vance, the captain dismissed it as the grinding of the train's settling brakes on the slight incline.
At 2:35 a.m., the train pulled out of Dents Run and thundered on toward Philadelphia. They arrived at the Philadelphia Mint Station at 6:45 a.m. The transfer team, led by General William Thorne, no relation to Silas Thorne, was waiting. A full battalion of Union infantry ready to secure the precious cargo. Captain Vance was the first to inspect the penitentiary car. The sight stopped him cold. The custom-made steel security seals, the tamper-proof wax and cord that he had personally affixed over the keyholes, were absolutely, perfectly intact. No cracks, no smudges, no telltale snap of a broken fiber. The massive Chubb locks gleamed under the morning light, their brass mechanisms clean and unmoved. There were no marks of forced entry, no prying, no explosives. The car was a fortress, untouched. Yet when Silas Thorne tremblingly inserted his key, and Vance inserted his, and they turned the locks in unison and wrestled open the heavy iron doors, the sight inside was an abyss. The cavernous vault, built to hold 8 tons of gold, was empty. The wooden crates, previously bolted to the floor, were missing. The massive shining ingots, the stacks of double eagle coins, all gone. All that remained was a fine, pale golden dust scattered on the steel floor, and a single chilling inscription scratched into the steel wall of the vault, written in a bold, elegant hand. The gold is a river. Rivers change course. The train had traveled over 200 miles through the heart of the Union. The vault was unbreached, the guards were present, and $30 million, a sum equivalent to over $600 million today, had vanished in transit. The ghost gold had been born. Chapter 1. The Panic of Philadelphia. The disappearance of Operation Hercules triggered a panic that rippled through the Union government faster than any telegraph. The moment General Thorne's messenger delivered the news, a hastily scrawled, near-incoherent note to the Philadelphia Mint director, the director immediately had a stroke. The Secret Service was only a nascent organization focused on counterfeiting. The Army was focused on fighting the Confederacy. The task of investigation thus fell to the era's preeminent private detective agency, the Pinkerton National Detective Agency. Alan Pinkerton himself, a squat, resolute Scottish immigrant and former Union spymaster, took the case personally. He saw in it a threat not just to the Treasury, but to the very credibility of the Union cause. If the government could move gold safely through its own secure territory, how could it hope to finance the end of the war? Pinkerton dispatched his best investigator, a former New York City police inspector named Arthur Sterling, to take charge. Sterling, a lanky, sharp-eyed man of 35, arrived in Philadelphia less than 12 hours after the discovery. His first confrontation was with the two key holders. "Tell me again, Captain Vance." Sterling's voice was low, cutting through the tense silence of the temporary command center established in the Mint's director's office. "From the moment you left Lock Haven, were you and Mr. Thorne ever separated from this penitentiary car?" "Never, Mr. Sterling." Captain Vance, his face etched with strain, stood stiffly. "The car was immediately in front of the cold tender. Mr. Thorne and I and 4 of the sharpshooters were in the adjacent baggage car. We were separated from the gold only by the common wall. We conducted an exterior inspection every hour, checking the integrity of the doors and the platform seals." "And the 2 keys?" Sterling pressed, his eyes flicking to the terrified Silas Thorne, who sat huddled in a corner, clutching a leather bag containing his key. "Always on our person," Vance declared. "Mine on a chain beneath my uniform jacket. Mr. Thorne's in that satchel, which he did not put down for 3 days." Sterling walked to the wall map of Pennsylvania. The gold was on the train from Lock Haven to Philadelphia. The seals were unbroken, the locks were untouched. Yet the gold is gone. Logic dictates that the gold must have been removed during transit. And if the doors were not opened by the keys, the thief either opened them without the keys or never needed to open them. He pointed to the spot on the map marked Dents Run. "Captain Vance, you reported an unscheduled 20-minute stop here, a logistics check. Did anyone outside your immediate security detail know about this stop?" "Only the railway officials and the engineer crew. It was a necessary precaution. The stretch of rail through the Allegheny National Forest is rugged, and we needed to ensure full boiler capacity for the climb." "And the engineer, Mr. Cobb, he reported a mechanical hum coming from the vault car while you were stationary." Vance bristled. "A rattling of the brakes, as I explained to him. Nothing more." Sterling ignored him and turned to a younger officer who had escorted the gold. "Sergeant Reynolds, did you observe anything unusual at Dents Run? Any movement beyond the perimeter?" The sergeant, barely 20, swallowed hard. "Sir, we were focused on the perimeter, watching the woods, but when the train started to move, I distinctly heard a sound that shouldn't have been there. It sounded like the splash of water, sir, like something heavy hitting the stream that runs alongside the track." "A splash," Sterling repeated, a slow, cold realization dawning in his eyes. "And you said nothing." "It was so remote, sir. I assumed it was a deer or a small rock slide dislodged by the train's movement." The key, Sterling thought, was not in the lock, but in the transit method. The $30 million gold shipment was a fixed point, but the train was a moving target. How do you move 8 tons of metal through a hole that doesn't exist? Sterling ordered the penitentiary car to be immediately transported back to Lock Haven, then dismantled piece by piece. His theory was audacious, shocking, and the only way the impossible could be true. It meant the architects of the heist were not simple bandits, but geniuses who understood the physics of transportation and the flaws in the iron vault. His first full report to Pinkerton was cryptic but definitive. The gold did not leave the car through the doors. The seals are a feint. The cargo was extracted by an ingenious engineering method during the Dents Run stop. The criminals are not train robbers. They are mechanical savants with inside intelligence. The gold, I believe, is not melted down yet. It is buried near a river and waiting to be unearthed. The hunt was on. A $30 million fortune was lost, hidden in the unforgiving wilderness of Pennsylvania, and the Pinkerton agency was about to unleash a massive, secretive operation to retrieve the Union's ghost gold before the secret was revealed and the nation's morale and its currency collapsed. The only questions left were who had the sheer audacity to pull off the ultimate gold rush heist, and how did they manage to make 8 tons of metal disappear without a single broken lock and a single drop of blood.
Arthur Sterling's cold analysis of the impossible crime quickly focused on the train car's architecture and the unique circumstances of the stop at Dents Run. The key to the heist, he theorized, was not breaching the walls from the outside, but exploiting the weaknesses inherent in 19th century rail engineering. The anatomy of the vault car. Sterling's first act was to have the empty penitentiary car delivered to a secure, abandoned railway maintenance shed in Lock Haven. His team of Pinkertons and a squad of Army engineers began the systematic dissection of the iron vault. The car was built like a safe on wheels, a heavy wooden frame sheathed in steel, resting on a standard freight car undercarriage or bogie. The search results confirmed that 19th century rail cars, while robust, relied on relatively simple coupling and undercarriage designs. This was the era of the link and pin coupler and early braking systems, long before the standardized sealed systems of the 20th century. The walls and roof. They inspected every seam and rivet. The 4-inch thick walls and roof were intact. No drill holes, no hidden panels, and no sign of blistering from internal explosives. The structural integrity was absolute. The doors. As confirmed, the Chubb locks and the customized security seals over the keyholes were perfect. The thieves were not interested in the doors. The floor. This was Sterling's focus. The iron vault floor was bolted to the car's wooden chassis, which in turn rested on the metal bogie, the wheel assembly. The engineers reported that the heavy wooden planks of the floor were covered by a final layer of half-inch steel plate, which was bolted down and sealed with pitch to create a watertight seal. Sterling, however, remembered the 3 pieces of evidence. The engineers reported mechanical hum. Sergeant Reynolds reported of a splash of water, and the single chilling message, "The gold is a river. Rivers change course." He ordered the engineers to check the floor bolts from the underside, the most vulnerable yet hardest to access part of the car while in motion. The mechanical solution, the drop box. The structural diagram of a typical 19th century freight car would show the exposed undercarriage, including the wheel trucks, axles, and brake gear. After 3 days of painstaking work, the engineers found it. Not a hole, but a seam. Deep within the structural supports of the car's wooden chassis, directly beneath where the 8 tons of gold crates would have been stacked, the engineers discovered a subtle, masterful piece of counter-engineering. The thieves had not tried to break into the vault. They had built a way to drop the vault's contents out. They had constructed a trapdoor, or drop box, into the floor of the penitentiary car. This wasn't a hinge door, which would have required visible seams and clearance. It was a section of the steel floor plating and the underlying wooden chassis, which had been cut out, hinged, and seamlessly replaced before the gold was loaded in Jersey City. The genius lay in the concealment. The fasteners. The section was secured by heavy, specialized bolts that were only accessible from the underside of the car. These bolts were capped with false rivets, welded covers that made them appear to be just part of the car's standard construction. The timing. The trapdoor could only be opened when the train was stationary, and access required an individual to get under the car. The sealing. Once the false rivets were removed, the bolts could be unscrewed, and the entire section of floor would swing down like a chute. The heavy weight of the gold crates, which were precisely sized to fit the opening, would be lowered down the chute. The mechanical hum reported by the engineer